Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dan Ball, and welcome to another episode of the Wellness Academy podcast. On our show here at the Wellness Academy, it is my job to distill all things wellness and attempt to break down from all our different coaches, experts, and guests their wisdom and knowledge so that you can apply it to your own life. Our guest today is Ryan Phillips. Ryan is a really good friend of mine. Him and I have known each other since we were 8 years old, training in the same martial arts class in the Midlands in England together. And whilst I've spent a significant amount of my life continuing to teach specifically martial arts, Ryan diversified his life as such, going from being a 3 times world and 9 times national martial arts champion with the WKA, that's the World Karate and Kickboxing Association, whilst also being really passionate about breakdancing. Ryan was a part of a breakdancing crew called Trinity Warriors from the Derby area here in the Midlands in England. He was on Got to Dance, a national TV program on Sky One, where he reached the final, whilst also really traveling the world and doing multiple different kinds of events, things like Xbox launch shows and all things worldwide with his passion and his drive for physical pursuits in martial arts and in dancing. Ryan then went on to take a different turn, and that's kind of what really prompted me to discuss with Ryan the idea of coming on our Wellness Academy podcast. He now spends his time managing his software and educational business, which goes by the name Video Suite. Ryan and his business partner Chris, amongst other things, deliver online coaching and products and webinars and seminars and so on, coaching other people on how to take their business to the multiple 7 figures that Ryan and Chris have done with theirs. And part of that is how to manage oneself. Strategies, tactics, whys, hows, the mental game behind being a full-time entrepreneur. And yeah, Ryan and I really go into some fantastic content. I took a lot from it, and I'm confident that you guys listening at home will be able to do the same too. So I really hope you guys enjoy today's episode. If you do, please take the time to either like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or if you're on podcasts, drop the podcast a like, drop the podcast a review, and make sure you hit subscribe where you can. Thanks so much for listening, and yeah, please enjoy. So it's Dan here from the Wellness Academy podcast. Welcome to another episode. We have the pleasure today of being joined by a very, very good friend of mine, Ryan Phillips. Ryan, thanks for taking the time out to come on the podcast with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's our pleasure. So I thought I'd start off by giving you the opportunity just to give people a brief overview of what sort of led me to asking you on the podcast. We are the Wellness Academy, and there are lots of areas of your life that you've experienced which I think fit perfectly into our kind of intentions and purposes and so on with the podcast. Some of which, of course, are your current activities, others of which are all the kind of crazy things. You've done quite a lot of stuff in your life, things that when you've told them what you do, people are like, oh, wow, really? So, yeah, give us a bit of a background.
Yeah, so the story behind Danny inviting me on the podcast is I've actually got no friends, and Danny just, as a favour to me, said, well, we'll get you on this wellness podcast then. No, just kidding. So my kind of background, the short story is me and Danny met through martial arts, and I kind of went on to be a 3 times world, 9 times national champion, then kind of changed my focus to dance, breakdance. I've been dancing for, it'll be 15 years now, and got to a level at that where I represented the UK, traveled the world dancing, and then kind of stopped competing in martial arts and dance and moved into business, and have grown an online business to the multiple 7-figure level. And part of I don't think you could really call it my USP, but just because me and Dan are both into personal development and personal growth. I really believe that success, whether it's in sports or it's in health or it's in business, is 50% psychology and 50% mechanics. Mechanics being the strategies and the tactics. And when me and Dan was talking about, the kind of mental and emotional part of achieving success, Danny was like, "Oh, there's a lot of things that kind of cross over, and there's a big well-being factor on that. But wellness isn't just physical; it's mental, emotional, and on that journey to achieving, whether it's business success, success in a relationship, health and fitness, there's a lot of the kind of mental game that you have to come over." So he said, "Hey, let's have a chat. Maybe there's some value that we could share that some of the listeners can get a few golden nuggets out of." And lo and behold, we're on this podcast.
So I think that stereotypically when people hear, just tracking back a little bit, when people hear 3 times world champion, 9 times national champion, I don't think this detracts from the world championships that you have, but I think people will think that that's fighting. That wasn't the area that you specialised in. So give people a quick understanding of what kind of stuff you did. And if we can, I'll probably try and track down some video links to stick in the description below. I'll probably try and find one of your classic extravaganza videos, because obviously, as you and I have discussed many times in nostalgic moments, they were some of the best nights of our lives. But you did a side of martial arts, or a form of martial arts, that at one point was called XMA, and then nowadays is more called forms and tricking, right?
Yeah, so it's basically martial arts forms, but with, instead of doing the traditional type of forms, it's you can kind of make your own up, and it's got jumping kicks and acrobatics and flips and somersaults, and it's basically all the crazy stuff that you see in the movies, but with a foundation of normal martial arts. So instead of doing a normal round kick or spinning hook kick, let's say, we'll kind of jump up in the air, turn upside down, spin twice, do the kick, and then land. So it's really good visually. But no, it was not in fighting. I never, whenever I'm doing any interviews or if I'm talking to people, I always say 3 times world, 9 times national champion. And normally I'll say with the WKA, the World Karate and Kickboxing Association. Because then people think, holy shit, he must be rock hard. So I don't say the forms bit because it makes you sound a bit like a pussy, but Danny's just brought it up.
Because I think
confidence right at the start of the call.
Because I think it's cooler doing what you did than fighting personally.
No, all good fun. Yeah, so it was basically forms with jumping and spinning and kicking and all that good stuff. Really, really athletic, really acrobatic, and loads of good fun. Some of the best years of my life. And me and Danny used to train together and would do loads of shows, and it was a great time.
So just say we're on a level playing field. You just mentioned that we used to train together, so there's a possibility that anybody listening thinks that I might have been on anywhere near a similar level to you. So I shall let everyone know I was not. Apart from you obviously stealing my world kick spin kick aerial combination, but it's fine, we won't talk about that. As for breakdancing, you completely glossed over it, but I remember a couple of things that you did. One, you were invited to, I can't remember which country, but you were invited to be a part of an Xbox 360 launch. Was it India?
That was New Delhi in India. Yeah, I've traveled all over the world, literally all over the world, doing shows, music videos, performances, battles, all that good stuff. Yeah.
And you were on Britain's Got to Dance TV program, which is not running anymore, I don't think. Was Ashley Banjo from Diversity one of the judges?
Yeah, that was him. That was one of the Pussycat Dolls. It was kind of like primetime Sky One. So it was a big deal in the UK and probably not a big deal anywhere else in the world, depending on where you're listening to. But we got to the final. That was really good fun, and
that gave you guys quite a you did quite a lot with it afterwards, right? You guys got to do kind of tours and shows and so on and so forth, and it really gave the breakdancing crew at the time, Trinity Warriors, a lot of a lot of notoriety, didn't it? Like not necessarily giving you guys any further street cred in the breakdancing scene, because you didn't quite do the breakdancing that I know that you personally know and love to be able to perform well on Got to Dance. But you did. It was a really cool thing for you to do, of course.
Yeah, it was lots of fun, and it was great for me because I never did it like professionally. Loads of people in the crew were professional dancers. A lot of the people are now. For me, it was always just something that I enjoyed doing. It was just a hobby, but I don't know if it was either that I was lucky enough to be half decent at it, so I could kind of hold my own with the pros, or which is one of my secrets to success, is that I was just good at being completely average or a bit shit at the thing for a long period of time. And if you do that over 15 years, you're going to be half decent as well. So one of those two is probably somewhere in the middle. But yeah, it was a great time. And again, that's a bit of the background with me and Danny in regards to, through martial arts, through me going into dance, Danny moving into like fitness. We've both been in the kind of areas of health and fitness. It's been a big interest, especially Danny. But for both of us for a long time, and it's one of the things that we can connect with.
I think we've often talked, you and I, about like there being 3 areas of life to be to kind of knock it out the park in, like health, relationships, and business. And I was shaking my head a little moment ago at the idea of you saying you were average at either breakdancing or at XMA, because you were definitely not average. Above average for certain. You and I both know that you weren't world class at either of those activities, but that's only because world class is like a level that's off the screen and takes dedication that you would have admitted as well that you just didn't want to put in. We've got a mutual friend, haven't we? A young man named Luke Scott, who you coached on a regular basis for a very long time, who I know will probably be happy to admit that he looked up to you. I think he will have looked up to you again for a very long time. And while you chose to direct your energy and focus into other areas of your life, Luke continued to do so with his martial arts. And that's led him to most recently being the stunt double for Tom Holland on the Far From Home Spider-Man film. I'm sure he's probably got other things lined up that I haven't heard about recently because I've not spoken to him in a long time. But that's really, in my opinion, knowing you for as long as I have, the only difference between where he is and where you are, or where, many of the guys that we knew from martial arts, one of them was a part, like Anise was a part of the stunt team in America. And can you remember the name of the stunt team? You had to pay to be a part of it, I think.
8711.
Yeah, and they were on Fast and Furious 6?
Fast
7?
and Furious, Turtles, Star Wars, the Avengers. They basically do every movie. And Luke as well. Luke, he did Spider-Man, but he did Wonder Woman. He did Kingsman. He's doing some other crazy blockbuster film now.
He was the body double for the gent who played the young Han Solo in the Star Wars film. But my point being that those guys they knuckled down and nailed down on that specific area, and it took them in that direction. You've chosen over, how many years, when did you officially leave our former martial arts organization that we were both a part of?
I was 27, so I'm 34 now, and I left when I was 27.
And you chose to knuckle down in the area of internet marketing. I remember your first foray was based on inspiration from a chap named Tim Ferriss, who we both know and love. And am I all right to say that your inspiration probably came from the massive changes that I made, like that at least contributed towards you wanting to do your first product, the rapid fat loss diet?
Yeah, 100%.
And would you how well would you say now, like that ended up going? Like looking back on that, what's your opinion of that product now?
Well, there was actually a couple of products before that. Okay. I tried to sell a breakdance DVD on the internet. Then I tried to sell a guy called Chris Farrell's membership, and my third thing was a blog. called Fat Loss Haven. The fourth thing was my first product, which was the rapid fat loss diet.
Okay.
It failed. We didn't make it a success, which is fine because everyone's got to fail on the route to success if you have a goal that you want to get to. And then it was a couple of products after that, even, of failing forwards fast, as I like to call it, before I had enough money to have like a part-time income before a full-time income, and then going to the level that we're at now. But yeah, all good fun. In fact, the reason why I kind of jumped on that weight loss product was because you obviously got so much success, and there's so much attention of people wanting to learn it. And in business, the only thing you really have to do is either solve a painful problem or provide a solution to a powerful desire. If you can do one of those two things, you're in business and you've got a shot. And I kind of saw the reaction that Danny's success with his weight loss was getting, and thought, there's some traction here, so I'm gonna try it. And I did it. I lost a ton of weight, got into the best shape of my life, and then just started telling people how to do it. Yeah, and it came from my mum. My mum wanted to lose weight. I bought her the 4-Hour Body, said, read this chapter, because it's a big thick book with loads of different areas. The usual kind of thing. 2 weeks later, oh, Mum, how are you getting on with the book? Like, did you read it? What do you think? Have you tried any of the strategies? And it was kind of like, oh no, it was just too big and I've not read it. So I thought, freaking hell, So that's when I kind of condensed everything down into a really quick and easy, the core fundamentals, and launched that as a product. Yeah, back in the early days.
Yeah, I remember. Because I remember doing a flip version of what we're doing now, and I was on like a Skype call with you to go through some of my kind of findings or like discoveries or thoughts. And I remember when I did that. So it was the slow carb diet from Tim's 4-Hour Body book, which I always say to people, like, it's a diet where, yeah, there's a lot of restriction, and yeah, there's a lot of kind of discipline required to stick out the 6 out of the 7 days, and then you get your cheat day. And even now, like, so I've just come back from California, spent 10, 11 days overindulging in a big way. Had a sports massage yesterday with another mutual friend of ours, former podcast guest, Seb Kane, over in Sheffield. He's told me as part of that discussion, I'm 2% body fat heavier than I was before I went like 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to do the slow carb diet leading up to what I am fortunate enough to have, which is another trip over Christmas this year. So yeah, it was something that I was doing on my own, and your customers did get to benefit from a little bit of extra insight, didn't they? So moving on from there, give us an idea of what things got you to where you are now. So touch on your highlights and successes, but then I know that you've got a wealth of knowledge regarding what you know are the mindsets that got you to where you are. So whilst letting us know what's been the home runs, as you would call it, what were the mindsets that helped get those home runs in place?
Yeah, that's a great question, and really ties it in well with the wellness aspect, because there's the mental and the emotional wellness that kind of comes first before you can achieve the physical wellness, because the outer world's a reflection of the inner world. So again, long story short, failed at online business for years and years. Now we do multiple 7 figures a year. We got 9 staff. Business is going great. Everything's good. And what I kind of realized, I started coaching people on how to do the same. And again, this is like a very small part of our income, because we're a software company. We create software that helps entrepreneurs and business owners get more leads and sales online. But we had a lot of our customers ask us, oh, Ryan, how do you drive traffic? How do you convert that traffic? How do you create a product? So we put a coaching program together, application only. We didn't sell it. I only wanted to work with a small handful of people. And what I noticed is that none of them actually created success. And I thought, well, why is that? Why was the first 10 people that I took through my coaching program, why did no one make money and build a business? And then I thought back when I was first learning, I joined a coaching program by a guy called Alex Jeffries. And there was about 1,000 people that year that went through his coaching program. And there was about 5 of us that actually made a success. And the interesting thing was everyone got the same information. Everyone got the same education. Everyone got the same help and support. So the difference that made a difference wasn't really the information that was implemented, i.e. the strategies and the tactics. The difference was the person, or the CEO, the entrepreneur, the business owner, the person that was implementing those strategies and tactics. And that is the difference that makes a difference. Same with weight loss. Everyone knows what to do to lose weight, but how many people actually go out and do it, And for me, the biggest cause of failure that I see people make, whether it is in health and fitness or relationships or business, is the lack of understanding of the universal law of cause and effect. And not, as it relates to the universe, but specifically as it relates to our lives. So in our lives, thought is the cause. So if you take the aggregate of your thoughts, whether positive or negative, you don't need to be a genius to look at your life as a consequence. If you show me negative people, I'll show you miserable lives. Show me a positive person, 99 times out of 100, you'll see the opposite. So cause and effect, if you want to dig a little deeper, there's 3 things that you need to understand. And that is be, do, and then have. Right? Be, then do, then have. So the first one's be. So that means that we need to become. So we need to have motion and movement in a form of growth. We have to educate ourselves, develop specialized knowledge. We have to become a person of value. We have to become. Then after, we have to do, which is take action or implement what we've learned in becoming. So it's be, then it's do, and then it's have. And here's the problem with most people. Most people don't understand that, because most people, want to have the having without first becoming and then doing what they're becoming so they can deserve and justify the having. So we've got it backwards. Or there'd literally be millions and millions of people that are healthy, happy, and successful. And if it's a universal law, the law of cause and effect, it's got to translate in all areas. So let's have a look at nature. So in nature, I have to plant a seed before I get a harvest, right? So in the seed is already the consequence, because without the seed, there is no harvest. Now, how does that work for humans and success in health, relationships, fitness, business? And I first heard a guy called George Zalicki talk about this. And he said that thought is the creative power of circumstance. And it kind of hit me like a train. Thought is the creative power of circumstance. And here's what I think that he means by that. It's that in our thoughts, we create our emotions. Then a combination of our thoughts and emotions make us behave in a certain way. Now, over time, that translates into habitual ways of thinking and reacting, i.e. habits. And from those habitual ways, we create the circumstance that we label our life situation. So if our circumstance or if our life is the end product, if we peel back the onion layer far enough, thought or our mindset is the cause, because our thoughts create our emotions. A combination of our thoughts and emotions make us behave in a certain way. Those behaviors over time crystallize into habits. And from those habits, we create the circumstance that's in our life. So whether we have a circumstance that's favorable or not, the level of health, energy, and vitality that we have, the relationship that we have, the amount of money that we have in the bank account, the lack of money we have in the bank account, whatever that is, the genesis of that circumstance comes down to our thinking and our attitude of mind. And that's what I noticed with the coaching students, the coaching clients. They all had the same information that I had, but the reason they didn't make a success out of it is because of this mindset and the me component. It was them as people. They just hadn't gone, through the things that they needed to go through to be able to implement the strategies and tactics. And that's been a big focus that I've had. And now, we've got a lot of success stories because I first teach people, hey, if you're here at point A and you want to get to point B, whether it is, 10% body fat, whether it's, making your first sale online, whether it's taking your 100K business to a, $1 million business, whatever it is, if we focus on the people and the habits that they have and change them, then all of the rest kind of falls in line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that was, it's funny because I had a question in mind and I was waiting for a natural point to then ask it, and you actually just led me into that question. So if you think about, so for example, whilst you were talking, I was remembering a product that I've got. Interestingly enough, there's another podcast host that I've become aware of whilst I've been doing these podcasts, who turns out that he's developed a product. So like, have you heard of I gave you one, in fact, the 5-minute journal.
Yes.
So I know that there's a 6-minute version of the same product out there, which I think is funny because essentially taken a product and just created a little miniature niche of their own to be able to develop one. But that product, at least part of it, is to direct your thoughts and focus towards gratitude rather than the opposite. I don't know what the opposite of gratitude is. Ungratefulness, I suppose. But what habits and tactics and stuff do you try and have your clients implement then? So start off with like a basic one, an intermediate one, an advanced one maybe. But if someone doesn't know, or maybe even right now they're not aware that they're not controlling their own thoughts, let's assume they're not, or let's assume there are, what types of things do people do to start taking conscious control? Because as we both know, there's a habit there already. Habits are hard to change. New habits are easier to develop. So what would you suggest people did?
3 things. And you hit the nail on the head whilst talking about that, which is, what are the habits they have to implement? And then you said, or maybe they don't have the awareness to be able to implement it. And that's where the key is, because most people don't have the awareness because we don't know what we don't know. Like, if you wanted to build a 7-figure business online, you would call me up and I would tell you what to do. If I wanted to get, lose weight, get more healthy, I would, and I ask you all the time, I'd call you up and ask for your advice. So it's really developing that awareness. And there's 3 awarenesses that you need to have. First is understanding and dealing with and seeing the reasoning behind negative emotions and how to handle them on the journey. Second is the 4 levels of mastery. Third, and understanding how biochemically the body reacts to learning and implementing new habits. And third is the habit curve. So real quick, first one, everyone's heard a freaking million times that you have to, if this is where you are, this is where you want to be, let's just call it success. If it's a better body, better business, better misses, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. You have to fail more than what you do to succeed. And everyone's heard that surface level stuff. You have to fail forwards fast. What most people don't understand, and what stops people before they even have a chance of getting what they want, is when they're on that journey and they're failing forwards fast, it's fail, 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 fail. Or you could exchange the word fail for whatever. If you're studying to pass an exam, you could say, I need to study, study, study. If you want a promotion, you need to work, work, work. If you're training, you need to practice, 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 or whatever. I just like using the word fail because it makes it like an okay thing. So when you're failing forwards fast, one thing that is definitely going to happen is you're going to experience negative emotions on the journey because it's part of life. No one in the whole world can get past that. Now, what most people do and what takes people out of the knees is when negative emotions show up in their head, they think that they're not meant to feel like this. Other people before them that have got the success they want didn't feel that, which is BS because everyone did and they still do now. And when those negative emotions show up, it knocks them off the path. Negative self-talk starts to come in. Who am I to think I can do that? I'm not cut out for this. Whatever other excuses they are, and they go and do something else. So the first thing is to learn to include the negative emotions on the journey. And when they show up, understand in advance that it's natural, it's normal, they are going to show up, and it's okay to move forwards whilst experiencing the negative emotions. It's fine. And you know what what are the main ones? If you're trying to get into a basketball team and you practice your 3-pointers at home, whatever, you just come back from California, you know, you practicing.
It was so funny and stereotypical to see walking some of the streets of like Petaluma. I don't know if you saw, like, I did like this little Instagram video. I found the lyrics from the Fresh Prince theme tune because they've got so many basketball hoops just in the street outside people's houses. And at one point when I was walking my girlfriend's step on, it was her dog. So I'm walking the dog and there are kids shooting hoops in the street. And I was like, yes.
Yeah,
just
very cool.
So stereotypical about basically because I watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But yes.
Talking about failing forwards fast, Will Smith just got his first 7-figure kind of deal with Jazzy Jeff before he did the Fresh Prince. When he entered into the Fresh Prince, that was the thing that enabled him not to declare himself as bankrupt. And I can't remember if it was the first 3 years or it couldn't have been 7. The first 3 years, and he was getting paid a decent amount from his music and from the Fresh Prince. It was a popular show. Mm-hmm. For the first 3 years, 70% of his income went to paying off his debts, so he didn't go bankrupt before he actually started making money. Wow. So you know, we think other people have it better than us, but we don't. And let's take basketball as the example. If you're here, you want to get into the local team, let's say. You know, you go to practice, you're doing well, you practice at home, you go to the tryout. You know, when you're there, it's 3-pointers. You know you can do it, no problem. You go to do it, you miss every single one, you don't get in the team. What are you going to feel? Rejection, frustration, jealousy, confusion, overwhelm, feeling of not good enough, not worthy, not loved, inadequate, you know, fill in the blank. Because when you feel one negative emotion, you tend to feel several others, at least.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, people just don't understand that it's normal, it's natural, it's fine. Expect them in advance because they're always going to come. And when you get to the promised land at the top of the mountain and you're meditating under the waterfall, you're still going to feel all of them anyway. So it's completely natural. They're never going to go away. Yeah. Include them in the journey. That's the first thing. Learn to include negative emotions. It takes people out of the knees. Second is understanding the 4 levels of mastery. And again, this is taught a lot. But again, a lot of people don't go past that surface level. So the 4 levels of mastery, you probably heard them. I know you have, Dan. First one, level 1, is unconscious incompetence. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is conscious incompetence. Stage 3 is conscious competence. Stage 4 is unconscious competence. So breaking those down, again, simple example. Unconscious incompetence is level 1. We don't know what we don't know. If you're learning to pass your driving test to drive a car, when you're 2 years old, you know, you're a baby, you don't know what a car is, you don't know that you can't drive a car, you don't know how bad you are. That's unconsciously incompetent. If you've never started an online business before and it's not in your field of, you know, vision, you know, you're unconsciously incompetent, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people are to CrossFit, whatever. Then you go to the next stage, which is conscious incompetence. Now, stage 2 is, you know, you're 16 or you're 17, depending on where in the world you are. You do your first driving lesson and, you know, you curb the alloys. The driving instructor has to slam the brakes on when you get to the roundabout because you can't drive. You're stressed out. You get out of it and you go, holy crap, how am I going to learn this? This isn't for me. And you get overwhelmed and the negative emotions come and hit you because you're consciously incompetent. You now know that you suck at driving, right? Then you get to stage 3, which is conscious competence. Now you're starting to get the hang of it. You know, maybe you go for your driving test. You still have to think about stuff because it's not at that level of mastery, but you're pretty good. You know, you get into the car and you have to think, okay, foot on the brake, put the car into gear, you know, handbrake off, mirror signal maneuver, make sure I get the biting point, you know, check my blind spot, drive out. So you have to think about it, but you can do it. You're consciously competent. Then level 4 is where the masters live at. Level 4 is mastery. And that is unconscious competence. So that's where you don't have to think about it. You can just do it. Now you've just come out of I won't on this podcast. I won't say McDonald's drive-through.
No.
Maybe you know, some other healthy place.
Moderation, right? There aren't many drive-through healthy places. So let's say you're having a salad because it's the only option you've got. Go for it.
Exactly. Eating the salad, you know, you got the salad, you scooping the salad up on this hand, you're driving the steering wheel with your knees, you know, you're putting your lipstick on in the mirror with your other hand, or you're on Tinder swiping, whatever. You just don't have to think about it. You can do it, no problem, like walking. Now, again, we understand that, makes sense. Now, what people don't understand is that when you experience the negative emotions, it's in stage 2, and you have to go through all these stages before you get to mastery. And there's 2 things that happen at stage 2. Number 1 is when you're unconsciously incompetent. When you're consciously incompetent, you know you're not very good at it. You're at the salsa class, you're stepping on everyone's toes. The negative emotions are coming in. You know, I feel embarrassed. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. That guy over there who's dancing with all the girls, he can actually get it, and he's been to less classes than me. All that stuff happens. That's when most people quit, and that's when most people stop. But your body, biochemically, your body's working with you to try and push you through that. So your brain's producing myelin, and you're connecting ganglias in the brain. So a ganglia is basically neuroconnections. It's when you're practicing keep-ups or flying side kicks. And how many other times you practice it, you know, first time you do it, you make one connection. Next time you do it, you make another connection, then another connection, then another connection. And these connections in the brain are called ganglia. They get formed the more you practice a skill. Now at stage 2, when you're at that stage, when you're experiencing the negative emotions, when you're consciously incompetent, you know you're not good at it, the brain produces a thing called myelin. And it's basically like it's a substance that the brain produces that coats these connections in the brain. Just like if you're charging your phone or your laptop's plugged in or whatever, back in the early days, they had the cable. The original reason they got this plastic coating on the outside is to stop something called leakage, where the signal leaks depending on how far the cable goes. Then, obviously, you know, that was back in the day. Later on, you know, a little bit later, they realized, oh, this is really good for safety as well. And that's what myelin is. It's basically to stop leakage for the neuroconnections. When Einstein died, they found that his brain didn't weigh more, or wasn't bigger than anyone else's, but it had more myelin in the brain. You know, whether there's a connection, I don't know. But the moral of the story is that when you're going through those stages of mastery, it's stage 2, when you're consciously incompetent, when you're feeding the negative emotions, just understand that it's perfectly normal. Every person that's a master goes through that, and, you know, your body's got your back. You're producing, you're creating the ganglias in the brain, you're producing the myelin. You know, just push through that. And again, have the awareness of, I'm at stage 2. I understand I'm going to feel X, Y, and Z. That's okay. Let me just keep going and stick in until I get to stage 3 when I'm consciously competent. That's the second big awareness that can really help people, whether it's business, fitness, just general emotional wellness. I think it can help.
Would you say, like, in 2019, that one of the ways that negative emotion is included is that whole comparison thing? So, like, back in the day,
yeah,
you will have done, like, you will have compared yourself to other people, but, like, at this time, I don't know why this particular concept or context comes to mind, but I think maybe growing up as a boy, and then when you watched American TV shows and films, there was always that classic idea of a lad would be afraid the first time he had to get changed in the changing room, taking his clothes off in front of other boys. So that's a stereotypical, I might compare myself to somebody else, you know, that boy's got hair on his chest and I haven't. Why am I not a man? That kid can grow a mustache. Why can I not? Why am I not a man? Like these classic stereotypical.
That kid's got 3 nipples. I only have 2.
Nowadays, that's even more highlighted because God knows how many users there are on Instagram. But you talk about including the negative emotion, and you also mentioned CrossFit and how people have unconscious incompetence. CrossFit is one of these. Like, as you obviously you know that I that's what I do a lot of for my own physical fitness. And my girlfriend and I, you know, she's brilliant at picking an area and focusing on it and getting better. So like 18 months ago, she couldn't do a push-up. Now she's completing CrossFit Open workouts where there's hand release push-ups, and she's completing upwards of 30 and 40 and 50 push-ups in a workout. But then at the same time, when you focus on one area in CrossFit, you then start to realize that there are a million other areas that you're not very good at. One of the positives of CrossFit is that you've got a community to work with and to train with. But then one of the negatives of that, if you're focusing on getting better at press-ups, but your mate who you sort of compare yourself to is all of a sudden getting loads better at pull-ups, it can be easy to go, they can do pull-ups and I can't, and lose focus on the fact that you can now do push-ups when you couldn't do push-ups before, right? Think about Instagram. You know, you go on Instagram and it's like, that person's movement is better than mine. That person's car is nicer than mine. That person's wearing that watch that I'd really want, or whatever. If you're giving advice in modern 2019 about the 4 levels of mastery, I guess you probably have to include part of that negative emotion is do not compare yourself to others on Instagram.
Yeah, and it's bullshit. Like, people's Instagram is their fake highlight reel of their life. It's 99% of what's not going on. So what people do is they go, my life's X, Y, and Z. They look at people's fake highlight reel and compare it. It's totally not reality. I know for myself, you look at my Instagram, it's world travel, Rolex watches, supercar on the drive, big house. And like, if I look at my day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, the most exciting thing in my life is probably trying to convince you to go cinema or meet me for food. But the odd occasion where I go to a marketing event and I have a couple of hours where I can have a look around the city and I take a couple of pictures and I share it on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I completely agree with you 100%. You know, and it's a lot deeper and a longer conversation to get, you know, to work on self-image, self-esteem, confidence, and kind of unhooking from the social media BS. Probably don't have time to go over it on this call, but I agree. It's definitely something that people shouldn't do. Compare yourself to who you was yesterday. Don't, you know, compete against someone else who's.
And I think that's one of those cliche sayings that gets so lost because it becomes a cliche. Like, I'd love to know and speak to somebody about why a cliche does that. Why is it when the human brain hears something 10 times or 100 times or 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times, it can be so easy that as it's the 1,000 or the 10,000 or the million, it gets listened to far less. When the things that get said 1,000 or 10,000 or 1,000,000 times are probably the things that are more important and therefore need to be listened to more. Like, I'm sure there's an interesting, you know, scientific or, you know, yeah, that's probably in the book Sapiens somewhere, why we do that. I don't know. Kind of moving on a little bit, but sort of similar context, of course. I know that you focus a lot on these habits and these routines and things that you can do on a regular basis to improve your life. And one of those areas is your morning routine that I know you've put a lot of focus into. It's been something that I've talked to some podcast guests about, but not others. But I know that your morning routine is something that, whilst you might not always follow it religiously, 2 things are important to point out. 1, you know when you're at your best, you are following it. And 2, even when you're not following it religiously, you still do bits of it and you never forget what that morning routine is. So like, what do the first 2 or 3 hours of your day look like when you're, you know, hitting home runs and living life where you want to be living it?
So of course I'd like to let everyone know that is every single day and I never skip a day. Jokes. So first thing for me, I've just had man flu the past, like, since my birthday, since the 26th, and it's the 8th of November today, so just coming out of it. So excuse my coughing and
spluttering.
Breathing heavy.
Yeah, it's all good.
So I've just recently finished Aubrey Marcus's book, Own the Day. So my morning routine's changed since probably we last spoke. So first thing I do is his water, light, and movement. So the water part is basically a little more than half a pint. Well, it's probably half a pint. It's a little bit more of the small glasses that I have at my house of warm, you know, room temperature water with 3 pinches of pink Himalayan sea salt and a quarter squeezed lemon. That's the first thing I have as soon as I get up. And again, if anyone's interested, get the book Own the Day. I listened to it on Audible. Absolutely amazing. It gives a lot of context around his recommendations, all the scientific studies that I definitely won't be able to recall, all of those studies. But basically, what that does is it hydrates your body, not just with water, because we're dehydrated when we wake up. We've just gone, 12 hours without water or 8 hours, whatever it is. But it also replenishes the minerals as well. So it's really good. And I feel absolutely incredible after having it. It's a drink that I have. It's probably the only drink that I've ever had where I feel like my body, when I'm drinking it, it's like my body's craving this. I can feel it having a hugely positive effect. So that's the first thing, water. Next is light. So for light, with the circadian rhythm, I have an alarm clock where it's not noise. It's the ones where, I set it for 6:30. So every kind of minute, it gets a little bit lighter. And then by 7 o'clock when I wake up, my whole room's bright. So it's not dark in there. So it just helps. I also have vitamin D spray because I live in England with Danny. Unfortunately, Danny's just come back from California where it's sunny. So in the summer, I'd go out for a 20-minute walk around my estate. Get sun in, 20 minutes a day is what most experts say is the minimum that you should get. Because we don't get any sun now, I just have the, vitamin D spray. But it's water, light, and then movement. Again, for movement, me and Danny joke about this because we used to go to the gym and Danny would work really hard and I would just do all this stretching and movement work in the corner. It's just a funny joke that we had. But I do the bioenergizer warm up, and if you Google or YouTube bioenergizer warm up, it's like a 30-minute movement and stretching routine. The reason I do it is I work from home. I run my business online, so I've got a stand-up desk. If I press this button, it can rise up. But if I'm being honest, probably 50% of the time I'm stood up working, the other half I'm slouched over, sat at the computer for hours. Not good for my body. So that's the first thing, water, light, and movement. Then I do the deep breathe and deep freeze, again, from Aubrey Marcus's book. So I have a shower, do all my washing in the shower. The shower's warm. Do the Wim Hof breathing. So it's basically 30 to 50 deep breaths. So, breath in, breathe out. On the final breath, I normally go up to 30 breaths. I exhale, then hold my breath for as long as I can. Then I open the door, get out the shower, try and put a 3-minute timer on my phone with water everywhere, so it takes ages. Get back in, whack the temperature to cold, and do a 3-minute cold shower. And again, probably I don't want to say the best feeling of my life, but certainly top 3 of the best times I've ever felt in my whole life is getting out of a cold shower. That's how incredible it makes my body feel. It's unbelievable. So that's the deep breathe and deep freeze. Then I get into meditation. So there's 2 types of meditation that I do. I do passive meditation and active meditation. So passive meditation, I use a Muse headset, and that's just for calming the mind, and it helps me focus throughout the day on work. The good thing about a Muse headset is you can track it on your iPhone as well. It's got an app that goes with it. Then I do active meditation. So passive meditation for me, it is literally just sitting down on my meditation stool, eyes closed, and it's just focused on my breath. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold to see if I can feel my heartbeat, breathe out for 4. And it's just that for 10 minutes. Quiets the mind, helps to focus, because you'll start thinking about crap and then you have to kind of bring your wandering mind back into the center and get connected with your breath again. So that's why I do that. Active meditation is me visualizing the things that I want to manifest in my life. So it's the relationship that I want to have, the car that I want to drive, how the business, how I want that to do. And that's about I'll probably say a 10 or 15-minute process. After that, I watch a mind movie. So a mind movie is like a vision board, but I've got it on my phone. I have my headphones in, and it's just got music. It's got all of the images. It's got lots of positive affirmations. That's like 3.5 minutes. It's to Diamonds by Rihanna. So however long that track is. And then that's basically my morning routine. I've got up, I've moved, I've fed my body, I've done the Wim Hof breathing, I've done the cold shower, I've done the meditation, I feel focused. Then I'll come downstairs, I'll put some chicken bone broth, organic chicken bone broth on. That's what I have for breakfast. I need to order some more of that, actually.
That's another Aubrey Marcus addition to your routine, right? Because
It
before
is.
you just used to wait, doing like kind of intermittently fast, extended, like,
Yeah.
fasting, time restricted eating, and then you would have a bulletproof coffee. So now you have the bone broth, and then you have your bulletproof coffee still a bit later on.
About 11, because I've just got back on it because I've had man flu. I've been eating when I feel like eating, laying in bed.
And it
I've
was your
just been
birthday as
focusing on.
well, right? Because I know that it's people think that you have to be an angel if you're going to be good at eating, but part of, like, I've got no problem with the fact that I've got a bit of extra body fat on me after like thoroughly enjoying my time in California. Like I have the amount of people I've told about the slow carb diet, and Tim Ferriss talks about in his book. I don't know, it doesn't really feel applicable in England. Maybe it is more applicable in America, but he calls it bike shed theory. But I could more closely compare it, and I'm sure there'd be at least one person listening who's experienced this. If you go to the gym, maybe it's more of a male thing than a female thing, I don't know. But you go to the gym and you tell another bloke the training program that you follow in, you'll definitely get somebody who'll be like, oh, no. Don't do that. Do this. Whereas if you really, really want to do something in life, sometimes you just have to either A, not tell anybody, or B, if you are going to tell people, be willing to go, cool, yeah, no, thank you. I'm just going to stick to what I'm doing. No worries. Like, thanks for your advice, but I'm going to stick with this. And I got so many people telling me all the negative things about the slow carb diet, how it's this, how it's that, how it's the other. But it's amazing at stripping body fat off the human body. And it's, whilst it is a little restrictive, nothing in the diet is restricted that you can't then have once a week. Nothing in the diet is restricted that the human body is scientifically proven to need, or it will die. So yeah, like, it's a bit more restrictive than the stereotypical diet, but it's still something that, if used in short-term quantities, makes a positive difference. And like, you might have to get back onto things now, the same as I'm doing, but your birthday is a good excuse to spend some quality time with friends and family, to overindulge if you want to, or not if you don't, and not feel guilty about it, right?
Yeah, not feeling guilty about overindulging, something that I'm quite good at, I would say. But yeah, I'm actually, you'll laugh, Danny. So me and Danny have a mutual friend called Sab. So I'm starting the gym with Sab next week, JD Gym, that I've signed up to. So I'm going to start training with him and Amir. Started getting back on eating. So I have the chicken bone broth in the morning for the health benefits. Have the morning supplements. Again, I just buy them from On It, Aubrey Marcus's company. I'll have a bulletproof coffee about 11, and I'll stop eating at 7. So I'll eat from, it's kind of like eating from 11 till 7, but I'll have my first meal at about 2 o'clock. But I know it breaks the intermittent fasting by having the bulletproof coffee because it's got grass-fed butter in. But in my head, it's kind of like the only big physical meal I'll have is around 2 o'clock. But yeah, all good fun. I think morning routines are really important. I think they always start the night before. By having a good night routine and having good sleep, you can set yourself up for a good morning routine, especially with what I do in coaching people with business. Planning tomorrow, today is a massive thing. Tim Ferriss talks a lot about decision fatigue. I make sure I know the exact 3 things that I need to do the next day when I wake up, so I don't have to think about it. I just do it, and I plan all that at the end of the day. And I think also having blocked out start and end times, again, more for entrepreneurs, because we have this tendency and habit to keep working all the time. So I block it out on a calendar. I block out my sleep. I block out training. I block out when I have calls with people. I block out when I have time off. I block out when I have chill time. So, and what's really good for that is when you look on the calendar, I just use it on my Mac. You see, oh, actually, I've only got 3 hours on Tuesday that I've got for growing the business and working, because I block out the morning routine. I block out my chill time from 6:30. I block out my lunch. Maybe I have a mastermind call. It's like, oh crap, I've only got these 3 or maybe 2 90-minute sessions of work to do today. And again, I think that's good. If anyone's growing a business, or if anyone wants to focus on fitness and wellness, it'll be good to block out your whole calendar. I sleep this amount of time, I work this amount of time, I see my missus on this time, I do 5-a-side then, or whatever. Oh crap, I've only got 2 times in the week when I can actually focus on growing the business or fitness or date night or meditating or whatever it is. And it's really good to see it as a visual.
And like, I know that it can be easy for people to think that much discipline can be constrictive, but for further reading, like the discipline equals freedom concept that a guy Jocko Willink
100% agree with that.
Is and the decision fatigue thing is 100% true. Like everybody on planet Earth, particularly if you've got a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, significant other, you've probably experienced that thing where you sat talking to your partner and you're like, wow, what should we have for tea? And you go back and forth talking about it, discounting things, suggesting things, getting more and more frustrated and fed up, till eventually one of you says, excuse my language, fuck it, should we just have takeaway? And that's a decision fatigue example. Like if you planned your meals ahead and just stuck with what your plan was, you don't have that problem. Like the coming back from California has not been an enjoyable experience. The 9.5-hour flight back that was delayed for over an hour was not an enjoyable experience. The drive back home from Heathrow Airport, whilst absolutely wiped out, was not an enjoyable experience. Jet lag, and I've got a cold sore apparently from the plane or from the lack of like proper hydration and food while I was away. That's not been an enjoyable experience. But what has been a massively enjoyable experience is eating home cooked food again. Like it might have been enjoyable to eat so much crap, but it wasn't enjoyable the way that I felt, how sluggish I was, how bloated I was, how lethargic it had me feel, and so on. It's been enjoyable to get back and experience like you notice that takeaways never do vegetables. Fast food restaurants don't do vegetables. You know what I mean? Chips and a burger, even if it's got some lettuce and tomato on it, do not count as vegetables. So I feel great. I feel so much better in that context getting back for sure. Whilst we sort of take a moment then, right, to wrap up the podcast, there are 3 questions that I normally try and tie things in with at the end. You've given so much value and things, I think, for people to take away from this already. So we'll maybe speed through these a little bit quicker than I might normally do. But first and foremost, is there anything from a physical wellness perspective that you haven't already mentioned, that you've got a habit, a routine, a tactic, just anything that you value doing on a regular basis that you haven't already talked about? Or if it is something you've already said, please feel free to say it again to give it that level of importance that you put up on it.
Sure. 2 things really. One is a weekly massage. So I have a weekly massage with Liz, and having a day where I just, and again, this is for me as an entrepreneur, like work a lot, have a day where I don't do any work, just chill, don't open the laptop, don't do any calls, don't do any booking of anything. And that's on Sunday. I just have a schedule clear. If I want to just laze at home all day and play on Assassin's Creed, I'll do it. I'll won't feel guilty. And I think having that proper rest day is real. And that's when I'll have the massage. And yeah, that's one thing I definitely recommend, especially for anyone trying to build a business or entrepreneurs. Like it gives you so much more energy and clarity, and to go at the next week with.
Cool. And does that tie into the next question, that's the mental wellness? Is that what you do for that as well, like having that rest day? Or is that just an added benefit that it gives you mental clarity and energy as well? Is there anything else from a mental wellness perspective that you do?
Oh God, just regular personal growth and development. So I read every day. Normally I do it at the end of the day. I'm reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
It's a great book. It's a great book.
Just finished Own the Day. Next one I'm going to read is Dave Asprey's new one about living longer and longevity and all that. That's interesting to me. So I'd just say, just continue to educate yourself, because, and I've noticed this with me, I'm a positive, happy, cool person, but if I'm not consistently doing my personal development, my growth, my mindset stuff, my meditating, feeding my brain with good stuff, I'll find that I'll be hanging out with my mum and I'll say something and I'll think, oh, why did I say that? Or I'll snap at someone at the cinema counter or whatever. And it's not because I'm a nasty person. It's just it's like cleaning your teeth. Now, if you want to have white teeth, How many times a month do you clean them? Twice a day. You don't clean them once a week or once a month. And we want to have a positive mindset. And, we might do personal growth. We might do it once a week or once a month or once every quarter we go to a seminar. So it's just consistent, positive feeding of my brain. I normally get it through reading, sometimes through podcasts, coaching programs. And I'd say that's a big thing for mental. Make sure you're on it every day, because if you're not, it's just like cleaning your teeth.
Amazing. And then overall, trying to think about like a life that's lived successfully in like the three areas that we touched on: health, relationships, and business. What do you do, if anything else, to try and make sure that you're living life so it's full in all areas rather than just focusing on one?
Such a good question. Such a good question. In regards to living life to the fullest in all areas, I don't think it's possible. I don't think balance is possible. I think it's very hard if you want to get to an elite level at something. So, and I, every time I've done the old wheel of life,
Is that a Tony Robbins thing?
I have no idea, but they do it at every single personal development seminar. Then we've been to a lot, and no, I've never seen someone with for anyone that don't know, it's like family, spiritual, financial, career / business, health and wellness, relationships, like the areas of life. And you mark yourself out of 10, and then you draw a line to just like connect the dots. And I've never met anyone with a perfect circle. So then what are the main areas? What are the games that are optional versus not optional? Health, relationships, and finance. They're the three games that are non-negotiable. If we decide not to learn or take part or play those games, we're going to be screwed in life. We do have the option to not take part in the family game or the spiritual game. We don't have the social game, but relationship / social circle, health, energy and vitality, business and finance, they're non-negotiable. So I just tend to focus more on them. Business, I don't need to focus on because I'm just always on it. I'm always doing it because I just love it. It's one of my passions. Relationships and social is something that I have to consciously focus on, because I'll neglect that to do the business because of some of my tendencies, maybe some of my limiting beliefs or internal programming. And I understand intellectually that the business and the financial success isn't going to compare to what's really important, which is friends, family, love, relationship, health. So I have to consciously focus on health, consciously focus on social and relationships, because business is just something that I'm, on all the time. So I'd just say, really, in my experience, there's no balance. And if you're going to focus on something, focus on the three core areas: relationships / social circle, business or career and finance, and health, energy and vitality. If you can focus on those areas, then I think it would be good. And real quick, Ty Lopez does this every year. He says there's 4 areas of the good life, and he says it's health, wealth, relationships, and happiness. So he'll, at the end of it every single year, he'll look at just improving them. And for happiness, I thought it was really good. He'll look at his life. He'll look at the things that he does day to day that he doesn't enjoy, and he'll either outsource them or stop doing them. And it might be people he's been hanging out with. It might be he doesn't like writing the emails in his business, so he'll hire someone to do that. And he'll just, consistently just take things away from his life that he doesn't enjoy doing. So he creates, a life that he can happily live day to day.
Yeah, that's cool. I would always then say at the end of a podcast, like, to ask people what's going on with them at the moment. You've got, I think, so many different things that you could talk about to the people listening. Obviously, one of my aims and hopes with these podcasts is that it's something that people listening to the Wellness Academy podcast, either on YouTube or on Apple or on Spotify or on SoundCloud or wherever it is, they get to benefit from your knowledge and your experience and so on. But I also love that this is a great area for the people who I do speak to, who maybe don't do podcasts regularly, to offer a different way to their tribe or their crew or their clients or whatever, and give them something. So I know that you've recently just passed 1,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. I know that you've got a decent Instagram following, but I know that they're not your focuses, and that you guys have got a huge mailing list of clients and customers and, past, present and future, that you could send this podcast out to if you wanted. So I know there are other things that you could say, Ryan Phillips online, or my clients, this is what's going on. There's too much of that to talk about. So let's just keep it simple. If anybody having listened to this wants to get involved with anything that you've talked about, whether that be your coaching programs, or maybe someone listening is looking to branch out and start a new online business and they want to reach out to you that way, what different ways can people connect with Ryan after this podcast if they've listened?
If they just type in Ryan Phillips HQ, so RyanPhillips HQ as in headquarters. If you type that in on YouTube, you'll get my YouTube channel. If you type it in on Instagram, you'll connect with me on Insta. YouTube, I post a video once every few months because I'm a lazy piece of shit. Jokes now. It's just not been a focus. But next year is going to be a heavy focus on YouTube, regular, few videos a week. But a lot of the things that I've talked about in regards to mindset, or if you're looking to build a business, there's crap tons of videos on there from the archives. And on Instagram, it's the only place I can actually speak to people that aren't my mates. Like if people message me on Facebook or email, I don't deal with them. But if someone sends me a DM on Insta, it's always me. And so if anyone has any questions, feel free to send me a message and I'll always reply. Amazing.
Thanks so much for taking the time out to do this, Ryan. Like we really appreciate it. We will, I'm going to try and do my very best to start linking more and more in the description underneath. So I'm definitely going to try and track down one of the famous extravaganza videos for people to see what you used to do many moons ago, and we'll link your Instagram and the website and the YouTube and all that in the links below. So yeah, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to allow me to talk crap for a while. Hopefully it benefited some people. But in all seriousness, Dan, what you're doing's amazing. I think all the stuff that you're putting out into the world and the people that you're pulling on is really adding value to a lot of people. I've got a lot out of some of the podcasts that I've listened to that you've done from the Wellness Academy. So, keep doing the great work, and hopefully speak to some of your guys on the Wellness Academy podcast soon.
Cool. Cheers, Ryan. This is Dan Ball from Wellness Academy. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. You'll find a link on the episode notes. Just tap or swipe over the cover art. You'll also see some offers from our sponsor, Lichfield Apart Hotel. Find them at lichfieldaparthotel.com, and we hope you'll support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've heard, we'd love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe. Another way to support us is to answer a short survey at yourwellnessacademy.co.uk/survey and tell us what wellness topics you'd like to hear about. I'm your host, Dan Ball. Our producer is Scott Towns, created by our executive producer, Ben Heathcote for Wellness Academy.